Court is now in session for the trial of the Ace Attorney Investigations Collection on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Ooh-wee! Capcom has been on a roll with preserving Ace Attorney content lately, including localizing the entries that haven't been prior. It feels like the Apollo Justice Ace Attorney trilogy just dropped half a year ago. Oh wait, it did. Yet, it's already time to turn back the clock and put the spotlight on fan-favorite prosecutor Miles Edgeworth for the great revival of his spin-off series on September 6th for $39.99 US. The Investigation series originally launched on Nintendo DS, and aside from mobile ports, has not seen another console release until now. It takes place shortly after the events of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trials and Tribulations, and goes on to show what Edgeworth was up to between that game and right before the events that lead into the Apollo Justice trilogy. By this point, Edgeworth has had one of the best comeback character arcs ever, from a cold-blooded prodigy that was mentored into only caring about winning cases to ensure that the criminals get put away, to a redeemed ace prosecutor determined to find the truth and ensure no innocent person is convicted no matter what. It's awesome that this series allowed us to see things from Edgeworth's perspective and kind of get into his head and personality beyond the limited appearances he has in the mainline series, where we find that yes, he is indeed a human, a good man even, behind that genius prosecutor mantra. Oh, and of course, a complete steel samurai nerd too. True to its name, the Investigation series takes the action out of the courtrooms, well, most of the time, and puts the focus on the crime scene investigations. As a result, these games feature fully realized areas you can physically walk around and interact with as you inspect every suspicious nook and cranny for clues, something the series hadn't seen up to that point, since all the mainline titles are fashioned after traditional visual novels. You got your background, some characters overlaid on top, and you called it a day from there. It's kind of a shame this style didn't become the standard, as it helps to flesh out the world of Ace Attorney, especially since you can have more than one or two characters on screen at the same time. Cross-examinations still work the same as always, however. Press witness statements to drag out new information and present evidence against contradictory testimony. Now, every Ace Attorney protagonist has had their own unique superpower, such as Phoenix Wright's Magatama or Apollo Justice's bracelet. Meanwhile, Edgeworth's superpower is, actually using his brain and common sense. That's right, he's the Batman of Ace Attorneys. Introducing the logic mechanic, where throughout the game, you discover clues that you can connect later on like a jigsaw puzzle. Then, Eureka! Edgeworth hits upon a new lead in the case. Not gonna lie though, I missed the brain blast-like animation in the DS version. Later on, the sequel introduces Mind Chess, where Edgeworth imagines the confrontation as if it was a game of chess. He must study his opponent's reactions carefully, and strike when they show weakness to break down their defenses and draw out new revelations in the case. Throughout both games, I love the dynamic between Edgeworth, good old scatterbrained and loyal pal Detective Gumshoe, and the new assistant, the second Yatagarasu that wants to steal nothing but the truth, Kay Faraday, who adds a lot of fun to the story of her high energy antics and high-tech little thief gadgets. Edgeworth basically finds his second family here, and it's wholesome watching their relationships develop as you go. Not so fast, I'm forgetting somebody. Lang Z says, Interpol agent Shilong Lang is a peak investigator in the franchise too. An amazing boss to his subordinates, all 100 of them, with some inspiring wisdom, and he makes for a great rival for Edgeworth as well, due to their conflicting ideologies about exacting justice. And not to mention, Lang's apparent disdain towards prosecutors. Otherwise, it's Ace Attorney as we love it, and both the new and returning characters are as simultaneously charming and wacky as ever. You know, being a Mega Man YouTuber, I recall that every time the topic of a potential Mega Man Legends Legacy Collection came up, people would be quick to point out that the series only has 2 games, not counting Misadventures of Trombone at least. So would Capcom ever bother calling a compilation of a mere 2 games a collection? Well, you have your answer now, as indeed, Ace Attorney Investigations Collection contains 2 titles, each containing 5 cases that are all unlocked from the start. Ace Attorney Investigations Miles Edgeworth, and the star of the show, Ace Attorney Investigations 2 Prosecutor's Gambit? Huh, I remember that title going a little differently. Well, to be fair, it has been a heck of a prosecutor's path getting to today. The sequel game originally launched in Japan in 2011, however, due to projected sales potential for our localization being low, scheduling conflicts with the development staff being moved to different teams at the time, and frankly the old DS was on the way out by that time anyway, for 13 long years, an official localization of Investigations 2 remained firmly out of reach for Western fans. So long in fact that by 2014, the fans had already taken matters into their own hands and released a fan localization patch. It was super high quality too, basically as good as having the real thing. Well, it only took another decade, but we finally have the real thing in our hands. That is surreal, and let me tell ya, we are in for a treat because Investigations 2 is peak Ace Attorney. The stakes are high from the word go thanks to an international incident occurrence, but the tension only rises as Edgeworth finds himself fighting to keep his job, all the while confronting the events that led to the infamous DL6 case from Ace Attorney 1. Along the way, he is even presented with the chance to follow in his father's footsteps as a defense attorney, when he meets Eddie Fender, who used to work with his dad back in the day. Of course, through the power of hindsight from the Apollo Justice trilogy, it's easy to guess the path that Edgeworth chooses. But this game does predate Dual Destiny, so there was at least a little suspense at the time. Prosecutor's Gambit gets crazy like a roller coaster, and it's an incredible ride too. I won't say more, just play it. Now, obviously, Capcom wasn't about to copy and paste the fan translation over to the collection, and localization director Janet said as much that they didn't play it so that it wouldn't influence their work. That being the case, we're gonna have to get used to all the new localized names for the characters. Move over Raymond Shields and make way for Uncle Eddie Fender. Oh yeah, we mentioned him already. Well, how about Sebastian ain't the best no more because he's actually Eustace Winner. Again, it's gonna take some getting used to, but I don't see the official names as particularly bad either. I mean, they still fall under the good old Ace Attorney trope of inserting as many puns as possible, so it's fine. As for which set of names are better, I'm not gonna sit here and decide for you. It kinda depends on the character and your own personal preference. More importantly, how does the official localization stack up? From what I have played, it's amazing. I saw no glaring typos or grammar mistakes. The characters feel properly fleshed out and fall close in line with the localization of the first title in terms of the portrayal of the returning cast. So even if getting used to new names suck, I doubt you're gonna come away disappointed with the quality of this new translation. As for the first Investigations title, it's a good game as well for sure. However, it does suffer from some minor pacing issues. Sometimes confrontations become long and drawn out, with suspects seemingly pulling arguments out of thin air to prolong admitting that they've been caught. Okay, to be fair, that's Ace Attorney in a nutshell, but it is a bit especially egregious here. The cases in this game center around solving international incidents, smuggling and all that jazz, as well as the mystery of the great thief Yatagarasu, rather than the more personal cases for Edgeworth that are featured in Prosecutor's Gambit, making the first outing a little less interesting, but still a very solid title and well worth playing. There is not a bad game here, and if you're a fan of the series, an Edgeworth fanboy like myself, or interested in detective visual novels in general, you're gonna love these spin-offs. Getting into the full package now, the presentation in the Investigations collection is absolutely stunning. From the HD character art to the high resolution backgrounds, the games have aged gracefully from their DS days. The previous Apollo Justice trilogy release exhibited some scaling issues, but I am happy to confirm that here in the Investigations collection, everything scales as sharp as a tack, even in the Nintendo Switch's handheld mode. Also, shoutouts to the fact that Capcom not only combined all the original dual screen action into a single screen, but they finally finally optimized the text spacing for a 16:9 presentation. Because even the Apollo Justice trilogy still used the old 4:3 style, using up 3 whole lines of text. But now that we're in 16:9, the lines have been reduced to only 2, and more of the text can fill the screen horizontally. Furthermore, since the text box is a bit thinner, they are able to move the text to the top of the screen at times if it would otherwise block the action. That's neat. The greatest update to the visuals though are the brand new HD chibi sprites, all drawn by the original character designer for this collection. My favorite aspect about the added detail on the new sprites is now character emotions come through way clearer, and new facial expressions have been added too. Take for example this scene at the start of Investigations 1 when Edgeworth discovers a body. With the original sprite, it looks like he nonchalantly drops his briefcase, but with the HD sprite, you see him fully freak the heck out at the shocking sight. Maybe from a certain point of view it takes away from the cool and composed aura that Edgeworth is known for, but I see it as adding detail that wasn't possible on DS. If you wish, you can still switch it back to the original sprites in all of their pixely glory. No ugly filters to be found here, thank goodness. However, now that the backgrounds are high res, I gotta say that the pixel art sticks out almost like paper cutouts against them. The one benefit to the original sprites though is that they do a better job of hiding the lack of lip flap syncing to the dialogue. Features making their return from prior collections include accolades, aka the achievements. There are 30 of them here, ranging from completing cases, triggering certain optional events, and finding things like the Phoenix Wright cameo Easter eggs. Story mode is back too, where you can allow the game to play itself and solve all the cases for you. But remember that most accolades are disabled if you experience the game this way. I also discovered that sometimes if you activate story mode in, say, the middle of an investigation segment, the game will ask you to reset back to the start of the section, which lessens the potential to cheese the solutions. Or maybe it's a technical issue, maybe the story mode relies on some pre-configured inputs that player inputs would mess up. Whatever the case, don't worry because we still got save scumming to rely on, thanks to the tons of save slots shared by both titles that you can load up at any time. As per usual of Capcom collections, the gallery will contain all sorts of extra content to look at. Interestingly, this time most of the content is locked away until you unlock them by completing the corresponding case. And in case you're wondering, yep, they will still unlock if you use story mode. Oh, speaking of locks, unfortunately, once again like the last Ace Attorney review, we are only allowed to show a limited number of screenshots for some of the gallery content, so bear with us please. Starting with the photo album, this is a collection of the in-game illustrations, cutscenes, and photos from each of the games. Documentation is where all of the concept artwork is stored, and this is the one exception where everything appears to be unlocked from the start. It mostly just consists of design sheets for the characters, then a tiny collection of key art and promotional illustrations for the 2 games, and of course the collection key art. Cool, but a bit of an underwhelming volume amount. Doesn't appear as comprehensive as the art book that was released in Japan. Now, unfortunately, the Ace Attorney Investigations collection doesn't have a crazy feature like the Phoenix Wrongmaker from the Apollo Justice trilogy, but as compensation, we do have the Character Compendium, where you can view every animation for all of the characters as you unlock them, both their chibi and confrontation sprites. I was surprised to find that you can even watch character breakdown animations this way, but obviously we can't show those for spoiler reasons. Last but certainly not least is my favorite section, the music collection. Not only does this contain the full OSTs, bangers mind you, for both games, but all the Ace Attorney Investigations orchestral arrangements from throughout the years. Ah yes. These really take me back to the days of the AAI2 hype cycle that I followed very closely. There was even a high school senior slideshow that year, where we could choose our favorite music track for our part of it. And what did I choose? Surprisingly, no, not a Mega Man track. In fact, it was the Investigations 2 Overture Orchestral theme, the same one used in the trailer back in the day, and it's right here available to listen to in the collection as well. Freaking amazing, man. And yes, That does certainly show how hyped I was for a game I ultimately wouldn't get to play back then. But oh well, my younger self is certainly ecstatic to finally play it now. But not so fast, there's more. Included in the collection are 5 brand new remixes for each game. Albeit, the remixes for Prosecutor's Gambit are exclusive to pre-order DLC, so you better have locked those in. Thankfully, the 5 tracks for the first title are included in the base game, so you don't gotta worry about that. Well, Capcom says 5 tracks, but they really mean 4, because they cheated and made the 5th track just the Pursuit theme again, but the no intro version this time. Yep, between both games, the track list consists of the Allegro and Presto versions of the cross-examination themes, the objection theme, and the Pursuit theme. These are some of the most commonly played music throughout both of the games, so it works well, and hey, they sound really cool too. The best part is, you can even swap in the remixes for when you're playing through the games, much like the Repoid Remix DLC from the Mega Man ShadowRockZX Legacy Collection. It's an awesome feature, and I would love to see Capcom do a more expansive arrangement for other retro titles. After all, that's why the Inti Creates remastered soundtrack mods are so popular for the ShadowRockZX Legacy Collection. That ends my testimony though, and I am happy to say that this court finds the Ace Attorney Investigations Collection not guilty. I mean, fans should already have their pre-order on lock to support the first ever official localization for Prosecutor's Gambit, but beyond that, this is an amazing package overall that I cannot find a single major complaint about. I'm sure that following release, people will be comparing the Capcom translation against the fan translation a lot more, since we are in that interesting predicament that we have these 2 totally different versions. But that's going to be a story for another day. In the meantime, I highly recommend picking up this collection and experiencing Miles Edgeworth's great deductions for yourself. One big question remains. With the release of this collection, we have basically every Ace Attorney game in existence preserved on modern consoles. Like, I believe that's all folks, the deed is done. So, is it finally time for Ace Attorney 7? Come on Capcom, I know you want to do it. While we wait on that answer, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to stay tuned to ShadowRockZX for more Capcom content, including if Ace Attorney 7 ever gets revealed and we do a review on it, and of course, all things Mega Man. Until next time, rock on and hey, have fun investigating as Edgeworth in Among Us. Poor man, now he has to find out what a sussy baka is.